Good evening. We got the cameras rolling. Welcome to the Board of Adjustments. We have a quorum. We're going to call to order this meeting. We have a couple of agenda items. We have to consider the minutes of the last meeting and public hearing with the Bakers, and then we'll adjourn. So if one of the members want to entertain a motion for the minutes.
Make a motion made to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
It's been motioned by Mr. Bruce and seconded by Bonnie. And I'm taking notes since Janet's gone.
And just for the record, Mr. Chairman, since I wasn't here, I would have to abstain from voting.
That's fine. Any discussion on the minutes? Anybody? So we have an abstain vote with Bonnie. Agree?
Yes.
Yes, and yes. So we have 3-0, and that passes. Next item, we're going to conduct a public hearing on an action on application from Quentin and Jana Baker at 213 Hibiscus Lane. The legal description is CB 5778 Block 5, Lot 7, and PT 6 ARB 6E, requesting a variance from the following: Section 50-36, Subtitle F, Paragraph 2, maximum number of 2 detached ASBUs on any lot. And we're going to let the Bakers come up and present before we have our open public hearing. And if Jana or Quentin would like to come up to the stadium in front of the microphone, and if you guys have something on the screen or not, I know we have some drawings here too, so.
Yeah, nothing on screen. This one's, I think it's pretty short, so we don't have to bother everybody with a laborious presentation. We're here to request a variance on the number of ASBUs. The issue is a carport. A detached carport was a part of the plans that we submitted when we got the original zoning variance back last June. It was in the plans, it was in the discussions, but when the variances were issued, the carport was not included. So we proceeded ahead. We, the city, and everybody, I think, thought it was in place. We actually got building permits for this detached carport. They were included in engineering calculations and engineering drawings, all of which were submitted. And it started into construction, and it's actually nearly complete. One of the Castle Hills inspectors came out to the property, saw the covered carport, and said that it needed a variance specifically. And that's what brings us here today. So we halted construction, and that was 2.5 months ago, while awaiting this hearing. So the request specifically is to add the carport to the number of ASBUs so we can resume construction and complete construction of that carport.
Now I'm going to give a 20,000-foot level. We approved a utility tractor shed from, I don't have the one in front of me, I think it was back in
Yeah, that's part of the
May.
original. Yeah,
May.
the barn.
Yeah, the barn. It has not been built.
It has been built.
Oh, it has been built.
The barn is essentially complete.
Oh, okay. And is it on the back side of the property, or where is that located, the barn located?
The barn is in the far northeast corner of the property. It backs very
Okay.
close to the Boy Scout easement at the far east corner of the property. So it's tucked way back in there.
And you got your permit, and the building inspector, when it came out, since this was not attached to the house, is why we all of a sudden came back into play, because it is a separate building.
Apparently so.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions for Quentin while he's up there? Any group?
Just a couple. In this process, did the city manager or Janet or yourself review what we actually said at that meeting?
Yes, Janet went back and actually pulled the videotapes and checked to see if the carport was part of the language of the ordinance, but just didn't make it into the written ordinance. It actually was included in Bruce's original motion, and there was a whole bunch of discussion, and the motion was restated, and it wasn't included in the final motion. Okay, so really as an oversight to the whole process, the carport got left out.
And My second question is, on this, I don't see where it is.
The carport, it sits off the north end of the house, not quite opposite the garage.
Well, I know that, but there's this like drawing around this house and it says.
They identify it as auto storage, and it's a little offshoot off the driveway. I asked Janet if I should stick little pointy signs to it.
That's actually where it sits.
No, the house is here. That's the old house.
It actually sits right up here. Let's go to page 6.
Well, I saw the sixth thing, but I didn't see section,
Yeah,
it said Appendix A, and I didn't see any A. I saw 6, but it doesn't say where it is.
Yeah, you're right.
It actually sits, I've seen it, and it actually sits right there.
All right, that gets you
Unless
straight.
you moved it.
Here's
No,
hibiscus
it's
over
actually right
here.
there. I'm sorry. That little square right
And
there.
that's not attached, oh, the driveway
right,
comes in
yeah.
there, I see.
Got it?
Got it.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to find, but I see it now, auto
Yeah, it's on there.
something.
I need a stronger magnifier.
Pardon me? We didn't bring anything to project.
And just
Anything
for
else for me?
purpose of clarification, because I don't remember all the descriptions from the last time, there's one that says siding building, and it's like 2 little tiny squares, and then another siding building with a covered area. And then
Is that on the first page,
on here, that's all I,
on the plat?
yeah. Is there another drawing somewhere?
The page 6 is the drawing of the carport itself,
No, I'm talking about
on the plat.
the number of buildings.
Okay.
Auxiliary buildings.
So we have
Up
a-
here in this, like, kind of opposite the original house, there's something that counts as a
Right,
building.
opposite the original house, there's a well house.
Well,
We have a small building that just covers the pump and the electrical equipment for the well.
okay.
We added the barn, right? So that's the second one. The covered parking would be a third ASBU.
But then there's another one down here opposite your house,
The,
but,
the other buildings there have been demolished. There was an old shed,
okay.
and there was a stable. All of those structures have been demolished. They're gone.
yeah, no, I understand. I'm just trying to, I'm looking at this drawing, I'm just looking at the drawing that was submitted, and I can't seem to count the number of buildings.
One of the issues we had is that you're not allowed to have 2 houses on what is considered one lot.
Right.
So we asked to have permission originally to redesignate the house that's existing
Right.
to an ASBU.
Right.
So
That's-
technically, there are 3 ASBU structures on the 27 acres, and we're asking for the 4th.
One,
On the 5-acre allotment.
2, 4. And the barn, this drawing here, this shows, it's so narrow. Is that what it actually is, like a chicken coop?
Oh, no, the barn is 30 by 50.
Well, okay.
Would you like to see the bigger drawings, because our builder is here?
I'm just looking at what was submitted, so whatever shows clarity of what's actually there.
I believe,
If there's things that have been demolished, it'd be nice.
oh, those outstructures, those were demolished, yes. And we submitted documentation so that all of that could be removed from impervious cover calculations. But that was not part of what our original application was about, or this application. Those were basically horse barns or something that were falling down and just rat traps. They were not habitable or safe for anybody, so those got torn down a long time ago.
Because I'm not talking about horse barn, I'm talking about, it just confuses me, that's all. I don't think there's any problem. I know we said
Okay.
that was one. That's
So the
another,
house is actually right, this structure here. This is the fence around the house,
the old house.
the old house
And
that's
then
existing.
this was number 2.
Those are gone.
They're gone.
There is now a new barn right here.
Oh, well,
And
what's
here's-
this down here? It says
That's
barn.
the, no,
that was
those
the
were
old
old stables, and those are gone also.
Mr. City Manager, it would be helpful the next time to get a current, if we're given a plat, we ought to have a plat of what's currently there, not what was there before the whole project started. But at any rate, so we're just going from 3 to 4. Correct. And that's a carport, which actually looks like a gazebo. I mean, in the sense that it could be used for that, so.
It's, the only
Yeah.
intent is a covered carport. It wasn't intended to be a gazebo, it's just carport.
Does it really come under the definition of a building?
Well, it's totally open-sided, okay? It just has a roof and a concrete pad to park on, so.
I don't know. Well,
So
anyway.
I don't know how an open roof structure, or an open-sided structure.
To answer your question, it is a roofed structure, and under our codes, it's a building.
It's a building.
Fair enough.
Looks like a gazebo to me, but.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And we'll close this discussion and entertain the council.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the...
No, I think you have to ask if there's.
Oh, yeah, we
public
do.
comment.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we're going, at this time, it is 5:46, and I don't have the sheet back there who signed up for public hearing. That'd be great, Jana, if you can get that. And we'll allow whoever is signed for the public's hearing. We'll open at 5:46. Thank you. First one on the docket is Jacqueline Ackley. Like to come up and speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Jacqueline Ackley from 118 West Castle Lane, and I hope that the board will entertain this variance and pass it for several reasons. I think I was actually sitting up there when the first group of variances were passed, and any contribution I made to the oversight of this building, I do apologize for. So for one reason, I think there's been administrative turmoil that caused them to be back today. Most importantly, I believe ordinances that regard our residences are there to make our Castle Hills city uniformly beautiful, which it is. But considering that this is an exceptionally large portion of land and you can't even see the pre-existing home or the new home from the end of Hibiscus Lane, which I walk 80% of days. It's a non-visualable entity. It can't impact the appearance of Castle Hills from the street. And if one were allowed to have one carport per acre, which I would judge to be the average size of a lot in Castle Hills, they could probably have 27 carports back there and be in the same ratio. So for those reasons, I think this should be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Kevin. There you go. I didn't want to chop it up.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm for letting them have their carport. I'm very familiar with all that land over there. As most people know, I grew up there, and that's where the Babbitt's house used to be, the old stable. And any improvements they do is a great improvement to the community. And they've done an excellent job of taking care of the place. And the land that they're building on, you could put a stadium there and a movie theater, you couldn't even see it, so it won't bother anybody. And plus, whatever they're doing is going to be top-notch. So I wish that for y'all to approve this so they can go ahead with their project. Thank you very much.
Kevin, could I just ask you for the record?
210
your-
Hibiscus Lane.
And your name?
Kevin Knippa.
Oh,
Knippa.
Thank you. Thank you. And that closes our public hearing, at least who signed. And it is 5:50. At this time, I will entertain a motion from our committee.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to, that we approve the variance request as written.
There's a motion on the table,
I'll second.
and there's a second.
And so we don't have any sort of problem in the future, as written where? So we know what it is, what the language is.
A variance in section 50-36F, number 2, maximum number of detached ASBUs on any lot, that we expand that number on this particular lot to the number 4. And that's been seconded.
And it's seconded. Then we'll have a discussion. We'll start on this side.
Okay, great. Well, this obviously was an oversight, and that's why I do support also the motion.
Great. I don't want any misunderstandings. I do support this motion. But I don't want to miss this opportunity to make a quick statement. Tonight, we have a zoning board member here who is actually the applicant, and we have a city council person here in attendance. This is an appellate board, and designed as such, we don't really get to recommend to anyone what should be or should not. We just grant or not grant. In this city, historically, we've had a set of zoning ordinances that are at this time under review by a committee. This is a perfect example of what I feel should be discussed for that board to be recommended to zoning, hopefully, and recommended to council, that we do not look at our city as a total cookie cutter in the way we look at our lots throughout the city. Historically, that has put a situation in front of this board where, whether it's fencing, whether it's auxiliary buildings, we have the dilemma of saying, well, do we give variances for some people and not for others? And as I said, I support this completely. I think it's a great use. But I would also like to take this opportunity to plant that seed with 2 individual people that in the current and ongoing discussions of this committee, that we take a good hard look at the differences of characteristics in our city for fencing, auxiliary buildings, to make it a little bit more equitable, so some of our citizens who don't have the resources to keep coming before this board are not penalized by zoning laws that maybe, or zoning codes that have become out of date as our cities progressed.
Thanks, Bruce. Bonnie? Brother Dooley?
Yeah, just, again, I have to apologize, I guess, for being a lawyer, but, so there's no problem before, because I remember Bruce before very wisely included language to the previous request to a certain, what I would call meets and bounds that applied to. This doesn't, and I assume that this legal description is the entire 27 acres? And I would respectfully request Mr. Smiley Caleb to amend his motion to incorporate the previous language, because we strove very much. I remember even in the minutes we went back, is this exactly what was meant in terms of the limitation?
Okay.
Well, I think if we can reference it to the language of the previous one would be fine, but I think this needs to be limited in the same fashion as the other was limited.
I would like to amend, since it's already up, I think it's sort of moot, but I understand. I'd like to amend the motion to the variances only granted to the previously granted variance lot size, not to exceed the boundaries of what has already been approved for variances. Can you square that away in language? Thanks.
I don't think it was lot size, because it was just
The
within
dimensions,
those
yeah, that's what I
dimensions.
meant when I was referencing lot size. Do you second that, Bonnie?
Everybody knows what we're talking about.
I'm good.
Yeah,
We got a second. by
you aren't
Bonnie.
moving it down the street, I know.
So got a second by Bonnie, and then is there any discussions? Is that clear as mud to you? We got that, okay.
Yeah, clear as mud, I think, is the right thing. But I still second it, and we can still take the vote.
Is there any other discussion on that? Let's take a vote on the second amendment that's been amended. This second motion that's been amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's passed, okay, so that one's passed. Now we're going to take a vote on the first motion. And again, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and so that passes.
When you say first, you mean as amended?
As amended,
Okay, thank you.
so that passes. All right, so is
Mr.
there,
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
then we have a motion to adjourn, and there's a second by Bonnie. And thank you very